Welcome to the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast, where we take a metabolic approach to help guide you on preventing, prevailing, and striving over cancer.
We are live on Prevail Over Cancer Podcast. I'm Jeff Lopes, my incredible co-host, Keith Bishop. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. And how about you?
I'm doing incredible. Everybody that knows my journey. I just went through my annuals and fingers crossed, everything went amazing.
Okay.
So I'm, as I tell my kids, you can have me around for at least another year. It's in a joking way, but everything is amazing. So some good news for this month, and we are going to talk about a topic on episode number 25. Amazing. Finally reached number 25. A topic that when I was diagnosed November 23rd of 2022, it was a topic that I kind of dove into, and I kind of just researched and I searched, and there wasn't a lot but information, but there was links and articles that connected it to, and it was when an individual goes through a stressful moment in their life or a tragedy in their life, there is a link showing on a good percent of those individuals 16 to 18 months later seem to be diagnosed with cancer. And it seems like the number is evident when you start researching it. And 2021, May 7th, my father had passed away. He was my best friend. I went through a very, very hard time for 4 or 5 months. I didn't sleep. I was at the cemetery every single day. It overtook my whole body. It overtook my immune system. It just took me and just strangled me. And roughly 18 months later, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I really tried to do research and see where was the link there. So let's use that as our topic today, because I think a lot of people that have gone through a moment in their life and then later on get diagnosed have questions on that. And I think there are links to it. Could it be a hormone? Could it be a chemical? But I think we're going to go with the actual science of it, is how, when we're going through a stressful time in our lives, we have anxiety, we have stress. So that could lead to lack of appetite. That could lead to not sleeping right. That could lead to not eating right. That could lead to not exercising. So you're actually not only mentally putting the stress and anxiety in your body, but you're also doing physical harm. And bringing your immune system down. So give me your experience and understanding of that.
Well, I had a similar type of issue. So my father had Alzheimer's, an 8-9 year process, and my mother took care of him. And then a few years, later, she's got brain cancer and glioblastoma and dies of that. So yes, I was wondering the same thing. I've done the research in the medical journals, and and a lot of people definitely feel like that could be an issue. And so a stressful event, or it's not typically like just one event. Our body is made to handle stress. I mean, that's the world. I mean, everything in our life, there's always going to be stress and things like that, but it's the day in and day out, the long-term issues that, potentially could add up to a problem. And so like my mother taking care of, my father, her husband, Alzheimer's, day in and day out, and she took care of him. She didn't put him in a nursing home. She hired my brother to even help take care, and be there with her to help take care of him at home rather than putting him in a facility. But it was a tough time. And then, him passing and dying, and then, being by herself and having to handle all of that, the finances and all that type of thing. Cause that was kind of like his job. So, I always wonder that too. The medical journals don't really show great support for that, but it doesn't mean it's not an issue, because it's, how do you measure stress? And how do you measure that stressful event? It doesn't mean it's not a problem. It's just not been well studied.
Yeah.
And definitely that stress does increase cortisol levels, and which is a normal response. Cortisol, our body makes it. Matter of fact, it's high in the morning, and to wake us up without the alarm clock. It is a stimulant. It helps us to deal with that stress. It gives us the energy. It raises our blood glucose so we can wake up in the morning, get going. We don't have to eat, to get going and take care of life's problems or whatever it is that, our challenge, and then decreases throughout the day. But that's the problem, is that, what happens is if it's not decreasing later in the day, and that is where we run into the problems. And cortisol is one of those. I have a similar type issue. And so with combination of, clinical practice, my PSA going up, wondering about prostate cancer, transitioning to Prevail Over Cancer, and then starting to test. Okay, look at these items, look at the PSA. That's what's nice, is I can measure that.
Yeah.
And I often will measure it every month, so I can kind of see, okay, when I did this, did that have an impact? And then, shortly after, I kind of noticed, that it was a little bit elevated, and I was already kind of making this transition into Prevail Over Cancer, and my PSA jumps up. It almost doubles within a couple of months, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
The doctors are freaking out. I'm freaking out. My wife is freaking out. It's a very serious, situation. And then, okay, well, let me do some testing. And I looked, and, my triglycerides, which is one of the cholesterol numbers, was, instead of being like 70, like I normally run, it was 160.
So is that a link to the increase in cortisol?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And no, but the underlying issue, though, so yes, cortisol is elevated, and it elevates my blood glucose.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
And so the glucose being elevated, if the glucose is elevated, the body has to do something with that. I wasn't physically active, and so my glucose was going up to help me deal with that stress, but I wasn't physically burning that glucose off. So I wasn't having to migrate, a long distance and walk and get away from that problem, that war or whatever that is. It's an internal war. I had to stay here and do that.
Yeah.
So my glucose was elevated. And so I was testing that glucose. Then I evolved and said, okay, well, I need to test my blood glucose and ketones. And I found that actually my morning glucose was pretty good, like 80, 90 or something like that in the morning. But then my glucose before lunch was 160.
So it doubled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all it was actually stress. Now, part of the stress is normal in my life. If I hadn't tested, I wouldn't have known that glucose issue. But the stress of normal is like meeting one-on-one with patients, clients, and helping them. And when I meet with somebody, it's like I give everything I've got.
Is that a fast? And that's you fast. So that is a fasted.
That was a fasting, yes,
which is
exactly
crazy. Yeah, that's double fasting. So that shows how stress impacts you. Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
And so and knocks up that glucose, and so that stress of combination, just everything going on, and so then okay, this is it. I've got to concentrate on my routine and do the right things. And now I did take, and I still take that product, actually a supplement to bring my cortisol down. It's called ashwagandha. And so it brings my stress levels down, my cortisol level down, and an amazing, improvement with that. Matter of fact, I take it at night. I have a tendency, even stressful, like a stressful time, or like if I have a project, I'm writing well, by the time this is going to air, I'm giving a seminar on inflammation and cancer. So I'm working on that. A lot of stress involved, a deadline, getting it ready for ahead of time so they can publish this and give the handout to everybody. And so there's stress involved. I'm having to work extra hours getting that ready, make sure everything's right. I'm waking up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because of my cortisol going up. Because I know in the back of my mind that I do want to work on that first thing in the morning before everything starts. And so actually by taking the ashwagandha at night, it brings down the cortisol and I sleep longer.
See, I actually took that supplement. God, it was part of my, I've kind of introduced and removed and played around with supplements, as you're aware, for the last pretty much almost 2 years. And that was one supplement I introduced for about a 3-month period. I was taking it in the morning, so I've never even heard of taking it at night for that. That's very interesting. When is this a supplement you would recommend? So, because we could put on our show notes as well for stress levels. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
Definitely, yes. And yes. And so what it does, it brings down cortisol levels.
Yeah.
And so it's in actually several different herbal combination products that manufacturers have for sleep.
Interesting.
Or even by itself. And I actually switched gears. I'm trying a different brand, and it doesn't work as good. And so there's qualities and strengths.
Would you mix that? Not mix it, but would you take that with a magnesium? Because a lot of people. Okay. Because I take my magnesium at night before you go to bed every night. So okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna look into that.
So in combination, there's other products that help out with sleep. But that's
of course.
And so in working with clients, that's why I'm trying to find out. Okay, why do they have problems with sleep? And there are different reasons. There's even urine tests that measure and saliva tests that measure cortisol, and then urine tests also measure epinephrine and norepinephrine and other stimulants, glutamate, and so you can actually put some science behind it. But I often, if there are stressful events going on. And matter of fact, it's kind of amazing. I'll ask a client, are you under any stress? And a lot of times they go, yes, just horrible, and matter of fact, a person this week, cancer, and probably, two people I can think of this week, that was one of the things they said, I'm under horrible stress right now. And so therefore, that's going to be one of the main areas we're going to do. Ashwagandha also does have some anti-cancer effects. Just the herb itself, in cancer cell studies, they take a cancer cell and test it with different herbs. Ashwagandha has also some anti-cancer benefits too. A lot of herbs do. So there's an additional benefit for that for a person that.
What do you take? What do you take dose wise?
Well, the one that we have is actually, I think it's about a 35% of the active ingredient.
What is the active ingredient in that?
And I'll have to look it up and see. I can't remember.
Okay.
Athenolides or something like that. I'll have to look that up. Okay. And it's not a common word. Okay. And so, but yeah, it's the one I'm currently taking is the better one I was taking was a 35%. I've taken another brand out of just kind of curiosity, and it's not quite as strong. And definitely I can tell the difference with that. Yeah, so, we'll get that. We'll put that in the
put it in the show notes. Yeah. So let's just like bring it back to any individual that's listening to this podcast that could put a link, or any individual that's listening to this podcast just for preventative measures. Let's be realistic. Once you get into your 40s, 50s, things in life start happening. Parents get older, parents get sick. With the increase in cancer rate, you're going to find a loved one or a close friend or a relative or yourself being diagnosed. There's so much things surrounding us nowadays that are going to trigger stress, that are going to trigger anxiety in our lives, whether it's work, whether it's children. Once you get to that age, everything starts happening. So we have to keep in our minds the things that are so important to really focus on when we are going through a stressful time in our lives. Right. Exercise.
Yes.
Sleep. Diet. Supplementation, as you're just adding another one. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about what are the things, like I said, those are the four main things, but how would you put them in order, and how would you really explain to somebody, this is what we need to do to focus to eliminate any opportunity for a cell to go rogue?
Yes. So I think probably developing a routine is extremely important. Our body does like routines. And so we have to set that up, but that routine, several different parts. So it is making sure that we are going to bed, that we're doing the right thing with the light, the daytime sunshine exposure and nighttime exposure light, cutting out that light so that we can make our melatonin,
natural,
which is another antioxidant. It may help out with sleep, but it is a super antioxidant. And so with stressful situations, we have a tendency not to sleep.
I'm gonna dive into melatonin. Would you recommend it as a supplement And why I'm going to ask is I do take it as a supplement before I go to bed. I don't take it all the time. I cycle it in and out because our body naturally produces it. I don't want to throw off my natural rhythm. So what I'll do is I'll take it maybe sometimes for a week straight, and I'll go off for a week or two, and then I'll take it for 2 weeks. I just play around with it as I feel, and I only take a 5 milligram, very, very small amount of it. Is this something that you would recommend or don't recommend?
Well, I do actually.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Most of my clients, it's a very serious issue, with cancer. And so they, actually we go very high doses.
You do?
Yes, extremely high doses. So I'm currently taking 40 milligrams at least once a day.
Before you go to bed?
And so before I go to bed. And
you take that much, and you don't find, you're not worried that your body will get accustomed to it and stop naturally producing it by itself?
And I've done that experiment. I've not taken it. And the only difference I can tell, and I use a monitor to check my sleep.
Yeah.
And the difference I can tell is that actually I get 30 minutes more deep sleep when I take 40 milligrams compared to when I don't take any.
Interesting.
And I can.
There's a name for that. There's a name. I can't. It's just slipping my mind now. What's the name for the deep sleep? It's a stage.
I don't know. With my little program, they call actually deep sleep and light sleep.
Yeah.
There's also REM or
REM. That is it.
That's a little different type actually.
But isn't that where you want to be in the sleep? You do not want to get a good hour and a half of good REM sleep.
All of them are important.
Okay.
And there are different stages, and so they all are important. I haven't noticed much of a change in the REM area, REM.
Yeah.
So random eye movement is what that stands for.
Yeah.
And so I haven't noticed much difference with it. And so there's, in the compounding pharmacy world, there are actually practitioners that are writing for 80 milligrams, at least once a day. And compounding pharmacies are making that because it's not commercially available. And then even there are some practitioners that are going with 180 or 160 milligrams once or twice a day at high doses. And so melatonin is a major antioxidant, repair the body. And matter of fact, I'm wondering now if, we know that the melatonin level goes up at night. And so therefore researchers have in the past always said that is a sleep hormone.
Yes.
I think it may be part of it, but I sleep almost the same whether I take 40 milligrams or not.
Interesting.
And so it may not be a significant issue. Once again, you can also test for melatonin levels, a urine test at home, so we can get it right before bedtime and throughout the day. And I've actually seen results from children and adolescents that have attention deficit. We're doing that. We're trying to monitor all of their neurotransmitters to find out what their problem is. And I have some children, I mean, it's amazing. Their melatonin levels are literally off the chart.
Yeah.
Well, they have good sleep and they're doing good. And then we have adults that, that have high level, have that low levels, they aren't sleeping. So we always assume, well, that's a sleep chemical. And then, yes, taking that low dose, like 4 or 6 milligrams, 3 milligrams, dissolving of the tongue might work a little bit better for that. May help a person go to sleep. I've actually played with all of those. And it may help out a little bit. But yeah, I think we have to question, how much of an impact does that really have on sleep? So I could take that 40 milligrams at night and wake up in the morning perfectly fine. I can take 40 milligrams throughout the day. I have to admit, something's just a little bit different in my brain when I take that 40 milligrams.
So during the day, see, I would not even play around with that during the day.
And I've experimented.
Yeah.
And so I started off with, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, experimenting with that. And
you don't feel drowsy, like a cloudy mind. See, I've tried, the most I've ever done is 10, and I've combined 10 with my magnesium, and I find when I get up, I would wake up, it would take a little longer to get my body just going, because I would feel like that I'm still down, like I want to sleep more, and another thing I'd find when I increase the melatonin is I don't know if there was coincidence or not, I'd find I get into deeper sleep, so more dreams, more intense dreams, where I would wake up like, what did I just dream about? Like the most crazy dreams. So I would find it would get me, I'm assuming, into a deeper sleep, which is a good thing, but you get more and more of that dream state. So it's interesting that you're saying that, because I have read articles of individuals like yourself that help people that are diagnosed with cancer, and one of the supplements they actually talk about quite a bit is taking melatonin at night, and but they always it was always a lower dose, either 5 or 10 milligrams. It was never that high of a dose. And so it's interesting. I've never even heard anybody saying, you're saying 180 milligrams, which is, to me, it would be like, how are you waking up the next day?
Well, but melatonin, matter of fact, we've known this for years. Very high levels of melatonin can also be a stimulant.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, yes, and so it's kind of surprising, but a lot of the neurotransmitters, we can have a similar symptom. If it's low, we can have a problem, and if it's too high, we can almost have the same type of a problem.
Interesting.
And so once we get up to that high dose, it might have a tendency to be a little bit of a stimulant. There's also some feedback. So we have our body makes serotonin, antidepressant chemical.
Yeah.
And then our body uses serotonin to make melatonin. So if we increase the serotonin, now our body, actually the serotonin antidepressant chemical may actually come up a little bit because we're not using it as much. And so it actually may be a way to improve depression. And it depends on each person. Everybody's different because it's metabolism and how our body makes things and the different nutrients and genetics involved. But that is a potential, is that our person might even have a little bit of an antidepressant effect by taking higher doses of melatonin. Okay.
So you would recommend it to everybody, and you would recommend, especially if somebody is going through a stressful time in their life, because if it does, even if you're getting a placebo effect and sleeping better, it's still going to have a better effect to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So I will often use it, but we will start at that low dose, like what you're talking about, because at first, even a person may notice, a change in their sleep patterns. I've had a few people that are a little more groggy when they first wake up.
Yeah. That's totally me.
Definitely. I've seen that, but I've also seen that become not a problem.
Your body gets more accustomed to it.
Taking that, the body gets used to it, and levels change, and all these other neurotransmitters change in the body. So, so that is one of those things. So we do have to have the sleep, we have to have the routine, and we have to have the exercise. Yeah. And so that exercise, and then I'm going to throw in at the same time, but I call it therapeutic breathing. I have a download on my website about that, but concentrating on breathing. And so I set a time aside to do that.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, at least 5 minutes. Yeah. And so when I was commuting to the pharmacy, the last 5 minutes of that commute, actually when I got off of the turnpike, then while I'm kind of going through the stoplights, half a dozen stoplights to get to the pharmacy, I'm actually just concentrating on breathing and counting those breaths and concentrating on my belly, dropping down and out, the diaphragm dropping, and in my tongue position and my pursed lips, and then counting how long I do those breaths, and as part of an anti-stress type thing. And it actually, so this whole thing, even the easy things I can measure for that stress is actually my blood pressure is lower when I do that, and I'm not as acidic.
Yeah.
So those are easy things to measure. So with a blood pressure cuff, I can do 5 minutes of that, and my blood pressure is like 10 points lower. I can do 5 minutes of breathing, and my saliva pH is not as acidic, so it's more alkaline, 0.4 of a point within 5 minutes, just by breathing. And so when we breathe and do those deep breaths, we're breathing out carbon dioxide and acid.
That was a huge part when I got diagnosed till from November 23rd, 2022 till I did the surgery February 16th. Is I would actually spend about 30 to 45 minutes just, what do you call it, meditating, breathing, and I would just turn off the lights, get in a quiet spot, and just really focus on my breath. And I found that would help me sleep better. That would help me bring my anxiety, my stress levels, my cortisol, whatever you want to call it, down. So I love that you said that, Keith, because a lot of people that are going through a time in their lives where there's a death, a separation, a loss of a job, they're having high anxiety, they will tend to make excuses saying they don't have the time to do these things because they're trying to focus on something else. And I love how you said that, because it's all about multitasking. It's all about adding. I love that you said that you do your breathing in your car. You could, that 5 minutes of breath work could be easily done while you're sitting in bed instead of looking at your phone. That'll actually help you sleep a little better. It might actually calm your body down. So finding times to multitask and knowing that, okay, my time is limited. I'm busy. I got my kids. I got my job. I'm going through a divorce. I want to look at your schedule and put the important things in. Make them non-negotiable. Now, you might not have an hour to work out, but you know what? You might have 10 minutes at lunch. You could go up and down the stairs 20 times.
Exactly.
Make it a non-negotiable and just fit them in where you are able to do them. And you'll be able to really multitask and say, hey, I'm not adding any more time to my life, but I'm adding so much more benefit by fitting in little spurts of exercise, or fitting in your breathing, or making sure that, hey, you know what? I'm going to prep my meals on Sunday. On Sunday, I prep pretty much all my meals. On Sunday, I get all my vitamins. I'm going to actually do a post on that. All my vitamins for the week, all set up on my little containers. So I know morning, night, evening. I have everything set Monday to Sunday. I have everything preset for the week. So there is no excuses not to take my vitamins. There is no excuses not to take, eat a certain way. There's no excuses not to work out, because I have everything pre-planned into my schedule.
Yeah, isn't that also, it's kind of stressful, even just getting all those pills ready, and getting all the bottles and thinking about that and getting, so that's a stressful event. But if you do it once a week, now you don't have that stressful event every day. And it's rewarding once you get it done, because now you feel ahead of the game. So on Sunday, I make my turmeric, ginger, black pepper juice, what do you want to call it, through my juicer, which takes about 10 minutes to make, and it takes about 45 minutes to clean the machine, which I absolutely hate. And I got to cover the whole, because we got white quartz countertops, and I got to cover everything, because if you get any of that turmeric on those counters, it stains everything. You ain't getting that off. So my wife will scream at me. So I have to cover everything with and paper bags, and it takes about 15 minutes to set up. It takes about 20 to 25 minutes to clean up, and it takes about 3 to 4 minutes to make it. But I get that done on Sundays for the week. So I have my big jug for the week. I take my turmeric ginger shots every day. I also get all my vitamins ready. I also prep as many meals as I can, and I have everything kind of preset in my head of what I'm going to have for the week. It just makes life, once you're done, you take a deep breath, and it's like, okay, took an hour and a half, 2 hours of my day on a Sunday, but you know what? The rest of the week, it's stress-free. And that eliminates one thing off your things, and you know the benefit of it. One of the things you just mentioned just a second ago is that deep breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even just, when I get up and walk, just even taking a deep breath or two, it's amazing how it feels. I mean, when you concentrate on it.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, like right now, we're talking, we're doing those short breaths.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that deep breath. And matter of fact, while you were talking a second ago, I did a deep breath, and actually it felt so good. Yeah. And when you concentrate on that, just you can feel the lungs expanding, and you can feel that change. So it's very important to take those moments and, go for a walk and take that break, after you've done a project, but go for that break, after you've eaten, go for that short walk. And so we have to be very deliberate. Once again, I think with the schedule, our body seems to love that schedule. But we have to schedule in those breaks, even during those stressful, things in our life. We do have to stress that.
I think our next podcast we're going to record, we're going to actually be answering questions. We get a lot of fan mail. For some reason, our system doesn't let us respond to the fan mail. So we're actually going to dedicate a part of our podcast answering some of these questions.
Good.
And I think the second part of that podcast, I want to talk about routine. I think it's so important. We're just diving into, and we could probably talk about this a whole podcast on a routine. So we'll dive on to the next one. So just to kind of end this off, and I'll give you my little spiel, and I'll let you finish off with your spiel. Everyone, once again, I'm going to state this, everyone's going to go through stress in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get it younger in their life. Some people get it older, but a death, a diagnosis, a loss of a job, a divorce, a separation, there's so many factors. And as we get older, those become more evident. And how we deal with them could be a huge determining factor whether we get diagnosed with something later on. And is there a direct link? I think there is a direct link, because once you actually sit down and just stare at it and pay attention to it, anytime we go through a stressful time in our lives, we're going to, like I said in the beginning, we're going to sleep worse. Our sleep's going to be changed. Our patterns, our eating is going to change. We're going to go to more comforting food, which is usually not the best food. Right. We are going to focus on a bad habit, a vice, whether you drink. Now you might drink a little bit more. There's certain vices that you might trigger, and stressful times are going to really bring those out. And now we're going to make excuses not to work out because we want it. We want to just get comfortable on our couch. So there's so many things that are happening, and this should be the opposite. This should be the time when you are going through a stressful time in your life that you need to take care of your body. You need to focus on your working out. You need to focus on your eating. You need to focus on your supplementation. So please, if you're listening to this, understand that we are going to go all through these moments and learn from everyone else's mistakes, and don't make it your mistake. When you are going through a stressful time, focus on what truly matters to help you get through that time, but also to make sure you take care of your immune system, take care of your health through that process.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, Jeff, you're a great teacher, on that, because, and for several different reasons. One is you've been going through it, you're going through it, coming out the other side, and also you're a business coach. And so you're helping people and coaching people with very stressful events in their life, their work and such. So you're a great example for that. So yes, that's what we have to have, that routine, and know that, and even have that future, kind of be thinking about the future, what that goal is. And so journaling, I think, is very important. Even though we have all these stressful events, if we can journal, we can definitely kind of list those stresses, but then also we need to have this other column here of Thanksgiving, thanks and gratitude. Yeah. And we need to write that down, because we don't think about that. It's easy to concentrate because that's just right in our face and hitting us, all that stress. But there's good things that are happening too. Some of it even related to that stressful event. And sometimes it's relationships and how we're able to help somebody, or how somebody's helping us, and how we see those little things. If we don't journal it or write it down, we'll just kind of keep going the wrong direction over and over and over again in our lives. So young counselors are a great option too. They can help with that. The professionals, if you're having a difficult time, with that. And actually, I have a lot of counselors. Matter of fact, this morning before we started, one of my counselors, actually, that has breast cancer, she sent in a client to me. So actually, counselors are actually some of my best referral sources. They see the people, with these problems, and so they'll send them to me for cancer or sleep issues or various other things, because counseling may not be enough because there's some other physical things going on. But counselors, I think, are a great tool. Psychiatrists, counselors, that whole group, I think, is very important, because sometimes we have to learn how to cope and work through those things, and forgiveness and all those type of things. It's a big topic for stress, but kind of listing and journaling and routine, I think, are
I think that's going to be another podcast for us. Is I think that's very such a great topic, and I agree with that. I agree with just talking to somebody, and it doesn't even have to be a counselor. It could be a friend. It could be somebody just a year, because it does bring a lot of the anxiety and the stress off your plate.
Exactly. In the Christian world, we call that a garden friend.
100%.
And somebody that we can be with, and that will listen to us and participate and not judge us, And so, we need that close companionship, whether it be a spouse, partner, relative, or a friend, but we need those garden friends that are close that we can be normal with and exposed and talk through that. Sometimes it's that talking is amazing, the results, and how that is clearing and relaxing to a certain extent. We still have the stress.
Yeah.
We still, have to have all these other things to do.
This has been awesome, buddy. I appreciate it. On to our next one. Like always, tons of information.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Okay.